see. Let's see if any or if all of my streams are working. Hope all of them are. Okay, kicks up. Let's see. Is YouTube gonna work? YouTube's working. Let's go ahead and get the post out. A little late today. Lots going on. Added a small extra story at the end, but it has rather large implications, so I figured I best throw it in. Let's see. Okay. Let's just hop right into it. I know I'm late. Alright. This is working. This is working. Hope Rumble's working. It takes a while for this thing to actually show me. I wonder if I refresh that, if it does anything. Okay, it does. Okay. New tech. Let's get started. Am I okay, no, I'm not frozen. Today is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. This is episode number 56 of Addressing the Issues. I want to do an update on the story at the hockey rink. This will probably be what many would consider today's main story, the Rhode Island hockey incident. There were 2 killed, 3 others were injured. A trans father shot his ex-wife and children. The shooter and wife are both deceased, and 3 others are in critical condition. This makes the second mass casualty event involving a trans person in a week. Now, if a trans person had not ruined their children's lives before, they certainly have now, as both of their parents are now deceased. But there have been some posts on X circulating from the shooter that goes by Roberta. It's actually Robert. It goes by Roberta Dorgano. The original post is by Kevin Sorbo from 2 days ago, actually. It says, Tim McBride is a man. Community note this if I'm wrong. Alex Jones responds, so creepy. Robert Dorgano responds, shut the fuck up, Alex. Don't be so butthurt over somebody different. Then wonder why trans people go fucking berserk. In another post, Robert Dorgano says, keep bashing us, but do not wonder why we go berserk. There's not many wonders in my head. Many of us have heard of Ann Coulter's law, the observation that the longer it takes the media to identify a mass shooter in the United States, the more likely it is not a white male. Well, I have my new theory. Let's make sure this is focused. Here's my new theory. So the new theory is that if you experience a mass casualty event, maybe it's a law, but we'll call it a theory for the time being, you will see one of 3 things or a combination thereof. The perpetrator is on mind-altering SSRIs. The perpetrator is on mind-altering hormones. Or 3, the perpetrator has been indoctrinated and or radicalized. This explains every mass casualty event since Columbine, and 2 include incidents such as the Boston Marathon bombing and actually every incident in the last few years. The only exemption that I can think to this would be the Route 66 festival, but anybody that's followed that understands that there seems to be more at play there than the lone gunman narrative, particularly that some people believe that the lone gunman that is claimed to have fired upon The festival goers was already deceased at the time of the incident, so that would put a big issue that he was the actual gunman. Big question mark around that. But in a civilized society, these people would be in asylums. They would be in asylums due to being clinically insane. We've allowed gender dysphoria, which is recognized by the American Psychological Association as a mental illness, to be normalized and promoted within our society. We give people medication that numbs their feelings as a way to cope with the realities of life, which they believe are too uncomfortable to endure. Do you think that it's a coincidence that when asylums were finally phased out in the 90s, within the same decade, these mass casualty events started happening over and over? Do you think it's a coincidence? Because I don't. I honestly don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's cause and effect. These people should be in asylums. I read a poll today that 2 out of 3 Americans take medication at least weekly. We're one of the sickest societies in the developed world, yet also at the top of medicine use. Why is that? Are we getting healthier due to using these medications? Or is the pharmaceutical industrial complex making us sicker and more unhinged while boosting their own profits? That's what I would argue. Why do we continue to prescribe these mind-altering medications like SSRIs and hormones when the all too common effect, it seems, is mass casualty events? Maybe this is so these victims of these events can be prescribed opioids and drugs for depression in the future, which would effectively continue the same cycle, and it would continue to pad the pockets of these doctors through incentives and bonuses, and pharmaceutical companies through the sale of overpriced medicines. But another crazy part of this whole situation is how we as a society are supposed to affirm these delusions, such as, in this case, that a man can be a woman. I don't believe anybody should be affirming this delusion. If you're born a man, you will always be a man. If you're born a woman, you will always be a woman. It's that easy. Men don't have periods. They can't give birth to a child. I'm damn sure of that. Why do trans women, which are men, need to take estrogen as a medicine? Well, it's because their bodies don't naturally produce it at the same levels. That's why they need to, meaning that they are a man. Have any of you ever seen a pregnant man? I'll wait and chat for half a second. Have you ever seen a pregnant man? An actual man that's pregnant? Besides the emoji, the pregnant man emoji, because that makes sense. I haven't gotten any answers, but it's because no, because men can't have children. We waste millions, if not billions of dollars a year attempting to fund these delusions, doing research on them, trying to get men to be able to give birth. It's absolutely unrealistic, unreasonable, and a waste of your tax dollars. We're fighting against nature here. And with incidences such as these in the last week, it sure doesn't feel like we're winning. It doesn't feel like we're beating nature. In fact, it's killing us. There's one thing that it's possible to take solace in this whole story, and it's that the real, non-delusional men rushed the shooter to protect other women and children. That's what actual men do. They don't dress up as women and go change in their locker rooms. They don't try and give birth. That's not what real men do. They don't go get implants and divorce their wife, abandon their children to pursue some delusion. Real men don't do that. They protect women and children, which was the case in this incident. There were multiple men that rushed the shooter. This is why I often say, have a plan, especially if you are a man. It's your role. It's your duty to women and children. There's no telling how many other lives were saved yesterday by putting the pressure on this mentally ill man and not giving him time to make other people victims of his delusions. But these men are heroes and likely allowed others to escape, allowed them to escape unharmed in many cases, although they had to put themselves at tremendous risk to do it. So I appreciate them. I'm sure everybody in a normal functioning society appreciates them. They're heroes in a way, but that's just their role. That's just what being a man is protecting women and children. That's what it's always been. That's why we've been able to function as a society and not been eaten by tigers. I mean, eaten by bears. This is the role of men, is to protect. And I'm glad to see that there were at least some men that understood the assignment and protected the vulnerable populations that were there at the arena just trying to watch a children's hockey game. But it also reminds me of the attempted massacre in a Texas church in 2019, which was stopped almost as soon as it started by an armed parishioner. This person was also a hero. He also had a plan. And I'm almost positive that if this attack on a hockey rink were to have happened in a place like Texas, a place like Florida, it wouldn't have been the delusional man that took his own life. It would have been a normal person that doesn't put up with stuff like this. So, to those men that rushed the delusional man that was attempting to kill people at a children's hockey game, I appreciate you. The rest of America, at least the rest of normal America, appreciates you. So, you guys are heroes. Likely saved a lot of lives yesterday. In another story of, once again, a crazy person, just today, an 18-year-old was detained by U.S. Capitol Police carrying a loaded shotgun and extra ammunition while running towards the west front of the U.S. Capitol building. He was wearing a tactical vest and tactical gloves. Inside the white Mercedes, which he parked and exited to run towards the Capitol building, police found a Kevlar helmet and a gas mask. I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and guess that he falls under part 3 of my theory, that he was indoctrinated or radicalized. Possibly. More than likely, I'd argue, probably falls under part 1, that he was on SSRIs. And, you know, part 2's up in the air, I guess. It could, like I said, it could be 1 of 3, 2 of 3, all 3 of 3. But it's every one of these. It's every one of these that somebody is on SSRIs, on hormones, or has been indoctrinated and radicalized. That's that. There's going to be more updates. I'll check at the end of the show today to see if there's any new updates on the 18-year-old rushing the Capitol with a shotgun. But he was detained, wasn't shot, wasn't killed, so I guess that's good news. He'll probably be tried as a juvenile in D.C., meaning he'll get off basically scot-free, real easy-like, just because that's how D.C. works. I think they can charge you as a juvenile at up to, I believe it's 25, if I'm not mistaken. But he'll be charged as a juvenile, and the person won't face the repercussions for his actions. Or hers. I believe it was a him, but I could be mistaken. It could be an it. Could be an it, you know. You've got to consider that these days. In another story, the artificial intelligence arms race risks human extinction. You know, just last week I supposited that AI could be the Antichrist. Stuart Russell of UC Berkeley, in an article on Barron's Today, claimed that the artificial intelligence arms race risks wiping out humanity. So it sounds like I might not be too far off. He warns that artificial intelligence systems could one day overpower humans. He cites surveillance, that AI can be used towards the creation of chemical weapons, and that the risk that AI could take control of populations. This is very similar to the deception I spoke of, the ability to manipulate humans I talked about last week. Just throwing in chemical weapon procurement as a bonus. I guess that's a bonus. I think it's not good. It's evil. It's awful, scary, horrifying. But AI is already replacing human jobs using unreasonable amounts of fresh water, unreasonable amounts of electricity, driving up bills and polluting environments throughout the world. Yet for the sake of stakeholders, these companies continue to push forward with this AI arms race, even though they are aware of these immediate dangers, not to mention the future dangers of AI, its ability to manipulate societies and allegedly possibly cause human extinction. So, before you sign up for your AI girlfriend and commit Darwinism at the highest degree, you should probably think about what makes this planet special, which is in fact humans. Maybe get some interpersonal communication instead of just talking to your AI girlfriend delusion. Delusion, illusion, it's both. It's awful. It's Darwinism. People are actually building relationships with AI. I guess they don't care that it makes their energy more expensive, their water price more expensive. The fact that it strains these resources, pollutes their water. But I guess if you're dating an AI girl, you really don't care about any of this. You don't care about much, actually. But we'll move on. And another, I guess, big win today. Today, Tehran claimed that an understanding has been reached in negotiations in Geneva today regarding nuclear weapons and a seemingly looming Iran war. This comes alongside news that the U.S. military has moved more than 50 fighter jets, or 50 more fighter jets, 50 more fighter jets into the Middle East within the last 24 hours. The meeting resulted in an understanding of main principles regarding a deal, and that a path has started towards a potential deal. Vice President J.D. Vance has said on the record regarding the issue that the U.S. would like to resolve the Iran predicament with conversation and a diplomatic negotiation. However, given movements of hardware such as air and naval assets and troops to the region, all options seemingly do remain on the table, with Iran practicing wartime drills in the Strait of Hormuz, possibly seeking to blockade it. It seems that both sides understand that if talks stall, war is very likely. One can only hope that negotiations continue to take place and a deal can be reached, as opposed to what likely will be a forever war, which is going to be likely longer than the previous forever wars in the Middle Eastern nations of Iraq and Afghanistan. And there's no guarantees that it'll be any less ugly than the formers. We've talked about this. I've talked about this ad nauseum. So I don't think I'll go on any further with that today. But on a good note, it seems that negotiations are taking place and could possibly move forward, avoiding what would be another forever war. So that's good. Good news finally. We finally got some good news, guys. In other good news, actually, the race to the moon is back on as NASA plans to begin fueling the Artemis 2 moon rocket this Thursday on the 19th. The preparations for launch have been delayed twice already, with extreme cold weather in Florida in January and a leak of propellant from holding tanks earlier this month. This wet dress rehearsal will begin at 6:40 on the 17th with the simulated launch at 8:30 later that day. A goal of a wet dress rehearsal is to simulate a launch by testing all systems. Figured I'd get a definition of what a wet dress rehearsal was for you guys, because, an average person like myself assumes, that's just getting dressed and going for a swim or something. I'm not really sure. But a wet dress rehearsal is defined as a critical full practice pre-launch test for space vehicles where the rocket is fully loaded with cryogenic propellants, wet, and the countdown proceeds to just seconds before engine ignition without actually lifting off. If this rehearsal goes well, the Artemis 2 rocket could embark to navigate around the moon as early as March 6th. The goal of this is for proof of concept for lunar missions and planning the Artemis 3 mission, which would be a moon landing, which could happen as soon as 2028. So that's good news. I think that could be, interesting, especially to all the moon landing doubters. If we do it again, is it really a fluke? So, yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited for that. An interstellar society. How beautiful would that be? Not like Interstellar the movie, though. That was kind of sketch. We don't want it to turn out like that. In another story, unrelated, but still rather big news, Warner Brothers Discovery is set to reopen with negotiations for deals with Paramount Skydance after Netflix granted it a 7-day waiver to do so. The main prize with Warner Brothers Discovery is CNN. That's the main prize here, especially headed into a highly contested midterm season with plenty of notable primaries. Something of note is that CNN is not included in the Netflix deal, but is included in the negotiations with Paramount Skydance. I think that is the big prize here, would be to have CNN going into these contested primaries, contested midterms, and able to use it to manipulate the narrative to its owners' liking. That's obviously beneficial, especially in what we always talk about recently, have talked about so much, the age of deception, the age of propaganda. But yeah, CNN is not included with Netflix, but would be included in the Paramount Skydance deal. Something else of note is that Paramount Skydance is owned by Larry Ellison. So if you have feelings about him, maybe you'll feel one way or another about this. And he could still get access. Paramount Skydance could still get access to CNN even if the Netflix deal goes through. As CNN's not included, they could buy CNN after the fact. And Paramount Skydance would still have CNN going in the midterm season. I guess Netflix isn't in the not in the market, not in the business of news. They're in the business of strange movies with strange meanings. We'll put it that way. They're in the business of propaganda. They just don't want to do it on news television. That's all we have for today. Make sure you guys are dropping a like, subscribing on YouTube, following on Kick, following on Rumble. Like I said, we're going to go back and check to see if there's any updates on the U.S. Capitol story. Doesn't seem to be any major updates. The identity of the suspect has not been revealed. It's just an 18-year-old wearing a tactical vest, leaving out of a white Mercedes. I believe he didn't even own the Mercedes, which is another interesting part of this. Didn't own the Mercedes. He just kind of had it because so many 18-year-olds have Mercedes. Must have been a rather affluent kid. What's that? Affluent something? Affluent syndrome? Maybe that's what this was. But yeah, that's all we have for the day. Make sure you guys are dropping a like, following, subscribing, turning on notifications. Share this if you think it'd be helpful with somebody. I should start asking people to share it at the beginning so we can have more live viewers. But I guess to my live viewers, that's the most important part of sticking around, hanging out, watching the show, helping me with this awful algorithm. It doesn't feel like they want me to succeed, but I'm going to do it anyways. Yeah, that's all we have for today. If you'd like to support the stream, I used to ask if you want to do super chats. I'll, add a extra 5-minute segment catered to whatever you're asking about. But yeah, there's that. And if you'd like to subscribe on Rumble, that's another way to financially support this show. I'd call it an operation, but the only operation is trying to inform the public. So if you'd like to do that, I believe it's $5 a month. You can do it for 1 month. You can do it monthly. Either is great with me. I'd appreciate it either way. But no, I appreciate you guys sticking around. That's all we have for today. I'll be live again tomorrow, hopefully at 4:45. I was a little late today. I'll attempt to not be late tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll be less busy in the morning. I'll have more time to work on this tomorrow. I had a busy morning this morning, unfortunately. So, I don't think I missed anything that important. I guess the passing away of civil rights icon Jesse Jackson happened today. So that is big news. I guess especially being Black History Month. You hate to see stuff like that. But I think anybody in general hates to see death, so there's that. That's all we have for the day. I'll see you guys again tomorrow, 4:45. Oh no. Hold on. Bear with, is absolutely unbelievable. And Kick is completely down, but I think Rumble's coming back up, so that's fine. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, 4:45. I don't know where exactly I was. Make sure you guys are dropping a like. I'll sign off here. Sorry about the freeze. I thought that was done with, but I guess it's back. Guess I'll be working on that tonight. I'll see you guys tomorrow. To all my people on the East Coast, I hope you get home safe. To my people further west, I hope you finish up your workday strong, get home safe as well. Talk to you guys soon.